Hello, everyone. Let me start with a question. How many of you would like to have an easiest shopping experience with your favorite brands? Show up your hands. Great. I guess we are on the same page. I am Zubin Sahajwani, Senior Solution Architect from BWP Prime. I am thrilled to welcome you in today's session, BWP Prime, Exploring Possibilities with Amazon Bedrock. Before we dive into today's session, allow me to introduce my team. We have Jonathan Kim, who is also Senior Solution Architect and colleague from BWP Prime. He is known for his expertise in building solutions using AWS services. Jonathan?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Kim, Senior Solution Architect at BWP Prime team. Before joining to this team, I was at Amazon Web Service for 3.5 years. It's really good to see you. And also, I'm so excited to show you guys how to provide a personal shopping assistant using BWP Prime and Amazon Bedrock. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And joining us, John Baker, a principal engineer at Amazon Bedrock. John brings wealth of experience in cutting-edge technologies like GenAI, foundation model, so much more. Well, I lost the count. Let's directly hear from John.
Hello, everyone. It's a privilege to be here with you today. I'm excited to share what we've built to showcase this shopping demo and automate it with Bedrock and the foundation models. In fact, I've been at Amazon 10 years. I started with the Prime team, so it's a wonderful opportunity for me to get to pair with them and showcase what we've built.
Thank you, John. Together, we'll be exploring interesting aspects of BWP Prime APIs and Amazon Bedrock. With that being said, our agenda is full of exciting content. We'll begin with an overview of BWP Prime and its powerful APIs. Next, we'll explore the concept of a shopping assistant using BWP Prime APIs and GenAI-powered AWS managed service agents for Amazon Bedrock. In the end of this session, we'll talk about invaluable best practices that can benefit anyone interested in building GenAI-based solution. But before we dive in, let me take a moment to provide you a high-level view of our use case. Imagine going back in time 10 years from now and telling yourself, one day I'll effortlessly navigate thousands of products to find the perfect one. And not just the product. You can access ratings and all other product information that is required to make a confident purchase by using simple, natural language. What's more exciting? If you can check out using BWP Prime, you can get your order shipped as fast as in 1 day with easy delivery and free returns. Now you might be wondering, how did all this happen? Well, we are here to demonstrate you a concept of what could be when you use Amazon Bedrock to create a shopping assistant. Now let's take a 10,000-foot view of this shopping assistant that we crafted for this demonstration using Amazon Bedrock and BWP Prime APIs. Here, Amazon Bedrock offers GenAI capabilities right out of the box, so establishing essential foundation of this integration, while BWP Prime APIs serves as a crucial means to extend its potential. These APIs offer access to data and functionality that can be utilized to enhance the shopping experience. As a developer, when you bring these components together, it will create a foundation of shopping assistant concept. To show you what is possible when you build using modern API constructs like GraphQL and generative AI using Amazon Bedrock. Now, with this overview, I bet you have more questions than answers. Well, you are in luck, because we are about to dive into details to demonstrate you how we created this integration. Let's begin with BWP Prime. BWP Prime. Many of you may have come across BWP Prime while shopping at some of your favorite online store. Buy with Prime empowers merchants to accelerate their e-commerce business by offering Prime shopping benefits to their sites. It allows merchants to convert shoppers with the trust of Prime, the promise of fast, free delivery, and a checkout process that is trusted by millions of shoppers. Imagine a retail merchant decides to set up an online store. It seems pretty straightforward, especially if you have a limited number of products. But as catalog grows, it quickly becomes challenging and a bit of a daunting. In order to thrive in a competitive online market, they need to address several areas of the business, not just managing product catalog. They need to have great order management and fulfillment to manage customer expectation. That's where Buy with Prime comes into play. By adding Buy with Prime to the merchant side, they can convert shopper with the fast, free delivery on Buy with Prime orders, while Amazon handles payment, processing, storage, packaging, and shipping. As we continue our journey into Buy with Prime integration, let's delve into capabilities of Buy with Prime APIs. Think of these APIs as a fundamental building blocks that developer use to create a tailored solution, giving you the freedom to design your integration to precisely match your unique goals and needs. These APIs excel in automating tasks, facilitating seamless integration, which allows for real-time updates. Think of this as a merchant. You have installed Buy with Prime widget on your website, and it is working as you had imagined. Now you want to go a step further. You want to customize product metadata or sync order status for near real-time to track customer orders. That's where Buy with Prime APIs proves invaluable, providing all the necessary tools and documentation you need to create a seamless integration for your business. In summary, some businesses may delve deeper into crafting a unique integration for their business by using Buy with Prime APIs. In today's session, we have a lot to cover. So I'll keep it simple and focus on product API that we have used extensively in our demo. If you are interested in learning more about other Buy with Prime APIs, I have a QR code for you at the end of this session. With Product API, you can manage products, customize product metadata, and maintain near real-time updates on availability, pricing. There are several potential use cases where Product API can be used. And I'll briefly touch one of them. For instance, you may want to select which product offered Buy with Prime directly from your website. By utilizing Buy with Prime Product API, you can create near real-time synchronization between your catalog and Buy with Prime product catalog, allowing you to offer Buy with Prime on products directly from your website. These APIs opens up a wide range of opportunities and play a fundamental role in our technology-driven era. As our technology advances rapidly, so does our utilization and dependencies on them. Look at the shoes, for example. You'll find wide variety of shoes designed for different purposes: sports, casual, luxury, and many more. And in each category, you'll find countless options, giving you plenty of choice to choose from based on your style, needs. It is amazing to see abundance of options are available in each category. Technologies have not only brought product closer than ever, but also redefined the true meaning of convenience. Literally, you can find anything online using wearables, TV, social media, phones, from rare items like old garage door parts to everyday essential. Virtually everything is available at your fingertips, delivered at your doorsteps. Speaking of a garage door, I would like to share my recent experience that you might find relatable. The image you are looking at is my garage door opener. I have taken it from down below because, well, my garage door opener is a bit camera shy, and I didn't want to hurt its feeling. Now, my garage door opener is pretty old, around 20, 25 years old, and one day it stopped working. I know, it happens. When I consulted a technician, they gave me a hefty estimate. It happens too. Why? Because they couldn't find the part. They suggested to replace the entire system. Since I'm involved in e-commerce, I decided to try looking for that part myself. Even after finding that part, I wasn't entirely certain if that part was the right one. I wasn't sure if that part would be the right fit for my model and year. Despite conducting extensive research, I couldn't find any assistant. So I decided to take a chance and purchase that part. Luckily, it turned out to be the right fit. We'll see in a second why I have mentioned garage door scenario. Having countless options to choose from and various tools to aid our decision-making is indeed a blessing. However, these many options and tools can easily overwhelm any one of us. It is not uncommon to feel frustrated and end up leaving items in the cart for later decision-making because we don't have enough information about those products. Going back to garage door scenario, during my research of that specific part to fix my garage door opener, I realized how important it was for me to have the key knowledge of that item to get the right product. How important it was for me to know where to look for that product, like merchant website. Equally important was for me to know the exact keyword to obtain the relevant results. The other factor could have influenced my decision in purchasing the part was finding the right product information. Unlike in my case, I struggled to find the compatibility and other product relevant information. These elements are crucial to find what you're looking for, especially in this digital era where we are surrounded by numerous options. It is not like years ago when you would walk into a physical store, you don't need to require any keyword. During those times, a friendly store assistant would help you find the right product. Not just the right product, they would answer all your questions and providing necessary information to make a confident purchase. Today, we find ourselves in two distinct worlds. One from years ago, where friendly store assistant guided our choices. And one from today, digital era, where convenience and countless options are just click away. With abundant tools and various options, many of our challenges have found solutions. Yet, the vastness of possibilities can sometimes feel like we are walking in a maze. This leads to a fundamental question. How can we help shoppers make an informed decision? Perhaps by being a helping hand that directs them to the product what they are looking for. Now let's hear from Jonathan, our resident expert on AWS services and building chatbot. He will guide us on making this shopping engaging and providing valuable insight.
All right, thank you, Zubin. It's good to be back here. So, as Zubin explained, we can purchase a wide range of products online. And also, we have options to buy tailored or customized product to our individual needs through various options. However, with abundance of options and choices, shopping can be somewhat overwhelming. There are a lot of products and choices and events and promotions. I don't want to miss a chance to buy a good product with a good price, right? And also shipping. Let's say I'm going to the beach this weekend and I need a shoes. Then I'll need this product as soon as possible, right? And also I should check the return options. just in case I want to switch my size or color, or anything can happen, right? Usually, this is really good for shoppers to have a lot of options. However, to find exactly what we want, exactly what we are looking for, it can require research, like Zubin did. We can do the research like Zubin did. However, how can you get an in-person shopping assistant on online shopping mall like physical store? Let's say I'm going to the beach on this weekend, and I need a shoes for that. And I visit to the store, I look around. If I have a trouble to find exactly what I want, then what should I do? I'll make an eye contact with the shopping assistant, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to the beach on this weekend. What kind of shoes would I need? Then we'll start the conversation, and finally, assistant will bring me to specific section, or he'll bring me the product to try it. How can you get this kind of shopping assistant on online world? Well, chatbot could help this. So let's go dive into how to build chatbot to provide this in-person experience shopping assistant. So to build a chatbot, in developer perspective, it would be a really good tool to provide a shopping assistant. However, then what's the first step to build a chatbot? Well, to answer shoppers' questions, I'll put every intent into the chatbot, right? However, it will be a really challenging job to input every possible intent into the chatbot. And also, that will be not enough to answer shoppers' questions. Let's say I'm looking for the shoes, right? And then it will be enough to support that question? No. We should ask back, what kind of shoes would you need? Or what size or color? Something like that, right? Therefore, chatbot should ask back to shopper to provide exactly what they need to lead the conversation between shoppers and chatbot. And also, not only just like leading the conversation, chatbot should do some actions, right? Let's say I need shoes with size 11 with a blue color, right? Then then the assistant will do, hey, I'll get back to you and I'll check the inventory and let's see we have size 11 shoes or not. Something like that, right? In chatbot perspective, which means that chatbot should communicate with other systems, right? Which means systems should provide some interface to interact between other systems. So systems should provide an interface like API. In this case, like Zubin explained, BWP3 is providing every feature through the APIs, right? So chatbot can call the BWP3 API to get the product information. So 2 things to build chatbot. First, chatbot should lead the conversation like using generative AI technology. And second, chatbot should take an action based on the conversation. This could be a really heavy lifting job to build like simple chatbot, right? So I want to introduce agents for Amazon Bedrock. This is fully managed service, and you can configure the agent with prompt and instruction, and agent will orchestrate the interaction between the conversation and foundation model and so on. And also, based on this conversation, agent will call the APIs to take an action. So then, what is the first step to configure the agent? instruct him. So I'll say, answer the shopper's questions, and based on that, you should provide the product information, something like that. Then agent will create the conversation, and based on that, agent will take an action to support the shoppers. So it's always better to see real work than explanation, right? We have a simple shoe store. We're selling a various category of shoes and some of products offered by Prime. You can see the Prime badge there. And also we have a chatbot. In the backend side, we have a chatbot is based on the Amazon Bedrock. So, and Amazon Bedrock will call by Prime API. And you can see we have a list of product here. We are calling by Prime product API here. And also you can configure or modify product information based on the API. And agent for Amazon Bedrock will call the by Prime API. And let's say I'm looking for the shoes because for the beach trip. So I ask, I'm going to the beach on this weekend. What kind of shoes would I need? And agent will call by Prime API. And based on that, agent will recommend some several shoes, like beach water shoes, swim water shoes, or just in case, sports shoes, something like that. Then I'll add some condition. Hey, I'm looking for size 11 with high rating stars, something like that. Then agent will get this conversation, right? And call the by Prime API, and based on that, agent will recommend some specific product. And then I'll ask him, I need more product details, right? Then finally, chatbot will bring us to the product detail page. And you can see there's a buy Prime button. If you're a Prime member, you can seamlessly buy this product and do the checkout and get this product in 2 days. So let's go more deep down on how it works. So shoppers will ask about the questions, right? I need this kind of product, something like that, right? Then internally, chatbot will input this comments to the agent Bedrock, right? The agent will orchestrate between our conversation and foundation model and our prompt. We just inputted the instruction, like support the shoppers, right? And based on this conversation, agent will trigger the Lambda function to take an action. In this case, Lambda will call the product by Prime API to get the product information. So in the Lambda function, it will call by Prime APIs here. And also, I want to let you know, by Prime API is provided with GraphQL. GraphQL is query language, so you can select what you need in the agent side, so you can query the data in a flexible way. After this, you get the result. So let's go a little more deep down on by Prime API. I said by Prime API is provided with GraphQL endpoint. So you can choose what to query. So which means agent will not need every data from by Prime product API, right? We'll need just like title, description, stars, something like that. Oh. Right? So you can choose the data in post payload, and after that you'll get the data you need. So you can call the by Prime API with this flexible way and choose the data. So you might be really curious about how Amazon Bedrock works. So let's bring John and see how it works on Amazon. Yep.
Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate that. Before we dive into details about the agent, I just want to step back a little bit. Let's talk about first, what is Amazon Bedrock? Bedrock is a fully managed service that you can use to build and scale your generative AI applications. And this includes orchestrating your workflows. Orchestrating workflows is what Agents for Bedrock is all about. You provide your APIs, you provide some simple instructions, and then we'll orchestrate those APIs in response to your user input. So how do you create an agent? Well, when you go to the Amazon Bedrock landing page and you select Agents, you have a button for Create Agent. And when you select that, you provide some details. So right here, you provide the agent name and a description. These are for your documentation purposes. They really don't play any part in the accuracy, but each agent name does need to be unique. The next screen is very important for accuracy. You select your model here. And as you can see, agents support the Anthropic family of models, and we're adding very soon the Amazon Titan models. And you'll see this grow out over time as well. We'll continue to add more model vendors. Now, for our use case, we selected Claude v2, but we also support Instant v1 and coming 2.1 Claude. So the last step on this screen is providing instructions for the agent. Now, this is very important because this is where you give it a persona. For our use case, we're building a chat agent. It's going to interact with customers. So we want it to have a particular persona that would be polite and friendly. So we tell it you are a friendly shopping assistant. You will provide answers to shopper questions. So you provide these instructions, and we put these in each prompt that goes to the large language model so that when it reaches the final state and generates a natural language answer, this is going to bias it towards that tone. We always recommend putting in a persona, especially when building a chat interface. So the next thing is to add your particular actions or your tools. So we call them action groups. Well, you'll see why we call them action groups in just a minute. But you provide an action group name, a description. The description is for your documentation. It doesn't go into the prompt. And then you provide us a Lambda function. So the Lambda function will house your APIs. So behind that Lambda function, you can have one or more API. And that's why we call this an action group. You could have multiple APIs behind that single Lambda. And you could use that Lambda to invoke your external APIs if you're hosting them in-house, or if you have them on API Gateway or some other portion of AWS. So how do we know what APIs are behind your Lambda so that the large language model can give us instructions on what to call? Well, you also provide us an open API specification. So open API specifications allow you to describe your APIs. You give us the name, you give us the description, you give us the parameters, the data types for the parameters, whether they're optional, whether they're required, all of these things. And so we include that into the prompt that goes to the large language model and tells it, you have available these tools to answer the customer's questions. So that description that you add is very important to achieve the accuracy you want. So speaking of the optional and required parameters, well, let's say the user was to say something like Jonathan demonstrated, I would like to search for water shoes. And let's say we had a search API for shoes that had a required parameter of size. So the model then would come back and say, what is the size of shoe that you would like? Now, in order to do that, you want to make sure that you allow human input. That's another critical piece to building a chat interface. So we allow you to specify whether or not you want the model to ask the human questions. So if you say yes, then any required parameter that it can't find in the conversation history, then it'll ask as a response. If you say no, then it'll simply say, I cannot proceed any further, or maybe perhaps an error message, depending on what you've configured. So when would you say no? Well, we have quite a few customers who are using us to just do automated workflows, maybe email classifications, those kinds of things, that there's no human in the middle or there's no human on the other side, and they would rather it just error out if the right information's not there. But if you're building a chat interface, allow human input should be on. That way, if it can't determine what API to call, or if it can't determine the parameters, it'll just ask the human to clarify that. Once you add the required information, which is the name of the agent, the tools that you have or APIs that you have, your instructions, and then whether you want human input or not, then you can test your chat agent right in our test window. You don't have to wire up your entire user interface just to test it. So notice here in our test window, at the bottom, you can input the text to chat. I was going to ask it about water shoes. You can see the history of the chat that's already taken place. And then you have this link that says click to view trace. What is a trace? Well, let's take a look. Let's click it. A trace allows us to see why the large language model made a particular decision. So you can see the rationale or the thought the model had as to the next step that it wanted to take. And then you can see a separate trace event. Whoops, I hit the wrong button there. You can see a second trace event for observation, and then the invocation type tells you the reason why we stopped, so that it was finished. So we'll get more into the trace details and show a more complicated example as we get towards the end of the presentation. But let's dive into how we orchestrate these tasks. So agents for Amazon Bedrock, they take a user's request, it takes your tools that you've provided, and it takes the request and it breaks it into smaller tasks based on those tools or APIs that you've provided. It executes these in the right sequence, and then it does it step by step to ensure that if any errors happen along the way, it can either correct it or ask for more information as required. Let's take a look. Let's dive deep and see what's going on under the hood here. Excuse my voice, a little bit raspy. This desert air is really getting me with my allergies. In fact, we had a song I was going to do. We had to cut that out completely because of my voice. So net positive for you, though. So I would like a pair of water shoes. That was similar to Jonathan's question here. The user asked, so what happens? Well, in their viewpoint, it's just going to say, here's a few choices of water shoes. Just a very natural response that comes back from the agent. But let's go deeper. I would like a pair of blue water shoes. What does the agent do behind the scenes? The agent is going to construct the best prompt for that particular model and version of the model. So we do the prompt engineering for you, and it takes the prompt for the beginning of the conversation, and it's going to say, you have these tools available to you, and it's going to list out your APIs with your descriptions, your parameters, everything you've provided in that open API spec. And it's going to say, think about this user's question and tell us what is the next step. And it asks for it in a specific format. And again, we work with each model vendor to ensure that we build the best prompts for you to make use of. And you might say, well, I'd love to see those prompts. Well, good news, you can. Two ways you can do that. We offer prompt editing right within the screens. The advanced configuration, you can see the prompts that we generate. Another way you can do it, Bedrock is built on transparency, so you can turn on invocation logging with Bedrock, and it's gonna log to S3 every incoming token and every output token. So you can see the prompts. We're welcome to share them with you through those screens. In addition, in our editing screen, you can edit them if you have particular edge cases that it doesn't account for or whatnot, so you can edit those as well. So we build the best prompt, it inserts the user's question, goes to the generative AI model, it asks for a specific format to come out. That format comes out, it's going to look something like this. We have the action name, product search, and then that's going to be from your description in your open API spec, and then it's going to break down and tell us what the parameters should be. Again, Agents is orchestrating all of this for you. You don't have to write any of this code. In fact, think about all of the work of natural language processing this model is saving us from. One, it's classifying the user's request according to your API, so it's doing classification. And then secondly, it's extracting all of this data into your parameters. It's saying color, blue, category shoes, description, water shoes. So that's a lot of code of natural language processing if you had to write that yourself. And the model, we find that they're very good at those kind of tasks, doing classification and extracting information from text. So it gives us back to the agent. The agent is acting as the orchestrator here. It gives back to the agent, I want you to do this in response to the user's question. So the agent is going to now make a call to your Lambda, and it's going to provide the API name right here. That's the path that you specify as part of your open API specification. In this case, it's list products, and then it's going to add the parameters there. So it's going to invoke your Lambda, and then your code will call your particular API for product search, and then we're going to get back. We're using Buy with Prime APIs, and as Jonathan explained, they use GraphQL, and it's going to have JSON coming back. So it's going to send us back the details we want, the item IDs, and maybe some descriptions. We see that they're both from the same company, 2 water shoes. Comes back to the agent. The agent doesn't just say, oh, okay, and dump out the JSON to your end user, and then what is this? You know, a bunch of computer code coming out. So instead, what it does is it's going to take and build a new prompt, again, the best prompt for that particular model and version, and it's going to take the conversation history up to this point, which is going to be the original question. It's going to also include the previous response from the model. It's going to say, okay, this was your thought, this was your action, this was the input you told me, and then we're going to say, here's the observation, and that's going to be the search results. So we're going to provide the search results as the answer to the action, and then that goes to the Gen AI model. The Gen AI model is going to come back with something like this. Final answer. There are several good choices. Any company, athletics, has 2 water shoes. So notice it took those 2 responses, 2 separate companies, and it summarized them into one sentence. Hey, they're both from the same company, and here's the 2 water shoes. So now our agent strips off the formatting of the final answer, and it's just going to return to you in your application. Excuse me. There are several good choices. Any company, athletics, has 2 water shoes, and so on. So we see how to do a simple orchestration with one API, but what happens if you have multiple APIs? Let me get a drink, and then we'll do that one. Okay. Hopefully I didn't pause too long there. Okay, here we go. So multiple APIs. Let's have a question now that has multiple APIs. What is the price of the water shoe, and what have buyers said about it? Okay, so now we have 2 questions, likely 2 different APIs. We're going to want to know the price, and we're going to want to know what other people who have bought the shoe have said about it. So now you make one call, invoke agent. What is the price of the water shoe, and what have buyers said about it is the customer's question. So you make your invoke agent call to your Buy with Prime agent. The agent combines now the user's question with the best prompt for that particular model and version, and it sends it to the generative AI foundation model and asks it, what is the next step based on these tools, these parameters, this question? Likely it's going to come out with something like this, product lookup. It's going to say, okay, the next step is to call the product lookup API. So the agent invokes that, and it's going to find the price of the water shoe. You, in turn, invoke the product lookup, and you return the results. Again, just like the last slide, we add that to the conversation history, which is the customer's original question, plus the previous response from the Gen AI model. And then it says, what is the next step? Now we still have one more question. So it's going to say, do a reviews lookup. Find what other buyers have said about the water shoe. So it's going to instruct our agent to invoke the reviews API. So now we invoke your Lambda. Your Lambda invokes the Buy with Prime APIs and gives you the product reviews, and then those are returned back. Again, we take the results of the last action, the conversation history up to this point, the original user's question, and now the foundation model is going to come back. There's no more questions to answer, so it probably would say something like, the price of the water shoe is $9.99, and the users have rated it 4.9 stars. I don't know. I haven't bought water shoes in 20 years, so maybe inflation has kicked up a little bit. So, but we'll say it's a Black Friday deal, right, or Cyber Monday. So we see there how it was able to take a complex request, and we'll say a complex request is one that involves multiple steps to solve. So it took that complex request and it used your APIs that you provided in order to solve that particular customer's question. We've done some deep dive onto agents, but let's now talk about some best practices. Some of these best practices are specific to agents, but some of them are applicable for Gen AI and ML development in general. So automate your testing, use trace events, and bring the data you need. Let's dive into the first one. Automate your testing. We strongly recommend when doing any AI ML work to first build a set of golden utterances. And these are things that customers are likely to ask of your chat interface. And a set of golden responses, things that you would expect to be the correct answer. Automate those tests, have them flow through and give a yes or no or correct or some kind of score. Doing this will increase the velocity of your project. We see it most of the time when people do this. It's 2 times faster, sometimes 10 times faster, because any change to the system, they can check the accuracy now of their chat interface or their automated workload, however you're using the agent or the foundation models. The tricky part here is that when we're dealing with generative AI, it's not always going to give the same answer. It might give the same correct answer, but it's going to word it in a different way, maybe just slightly different. And if you're just doing an exact string match to what you would expect the right answer to be, then most of the time it's going to fail because it's just not always going to return the same answer. So how do you solve this problem? Well, there's a few different ways. Well, there's a lot of different ways. There's papers written on this entire subject, but we'll talk about a couple. One, you can use statistics such as Rouge and Rougel that will look at the longest common substrings or the amount of overlap between what you said was the golden and what came out of the generative AI model. And you can set a percentage and say, okay, it has to be this percentage, and Rouge and Rougel and there's a whole family of Rouge statistics that are fairly easy to implement that can give you a score back, and you just say, okay, it has to have a minimum of this particular score in order to pass. The other thing you can do, and I highly recommend this approach, we use it internally, use the LLM to automate the testing and to judge the results as much as you can. Because the LLMs, there's been numerous studies on this, a lot of the LLMs are more effective than even human annotators at being consistent in annotating results. So using the LLM to say, here's what I expected, here's what I got, are they the same? Are they different? How are they different? Or perhaps you ask it to score it in some way, and then you have to have a minimum score. So if you put this kind of automated accuracy testing in place, your project will move much faster with much higher velocity, because any change to the system, whether it has to do with the agent or not, run the accuracy test and see if perhaps you affected the accuracy by something that you thought wouldn't. Our next best practice is make use of the trace events. So the trace events coming out of our API. Our API invoke agent is a streaming API. So we'll send back to you not only the response, but we'll send back to you other events on that same stream. And those events are those trace events that I showed you. And that can help you because you can keep the user informed of what is going on. As you saw, a single user request could result in multiple API calls, multiple round trips to the large language model. So while all this is occurring, you don't want your user just wondering, is this thing stuck? No. Update the UI. Tell them, invoking product search, searching for a product. We give you the thought of the model. We give you what API we're going to call. We give you the results of that API, so you can keep them up to date in real time and tell them, hey, all of this is happening, and that way they don't think they're just waiting. So how do you do this? In our API, there's an enable trace flag, true, false. Set it to true. It's false by default, but I recommend setting it to true, and then that way you can build your user experience around that as well. Here's an example of a little bit more complicated one. I'm looking for water shoes size 9. You see that? And then here's the response we get. We specifically formatted the response as XML because we wanted to strip out some information for the user interface, as you saw with the nice HTML and JavaScript interface. So let's take a look at the rationale behind that and the trace events. So you can see here the rationale, the thought as to why it wanted to do this. To answer this question, I will get the buy with prime action group list products function to list the products. And then it says invocation trace, list products, and then the action group and the observation, which is the results. So using this, you can keep your users up to date. The final best practice is bring the data you need and don't bring extra data that you don't need. So ensure that your APIs are returning the right information and filter out information that is not necessary to answer the user's question. If you do this, you're less likely to have the large language model include that data in its natural language response. And especially don't include anything in the return that you would never want shown to the user because it may include it. So if there's sensitive information coming back from your APIs, make use of the GraphQL capabilities of Buy with Prime. That's a great feature that they have with Buy with Prime APIs is that GraphQL, because you can shape the responses with that and ensure that what you're bringing back it includes the information that the user wanted and doesn't bring in extra information. So make use of that, filter out unnecessary data. Well, I've really enjoyed doing this deep dive with you, and I've enjoyed sharing some best practices. Let me hand it back to Zubin, who can finish up with our key takeaways.
Every time I listen to John, I learn something new. Thank you, John, for sharing in-depth knowledge on Amazon Bedrock and best practices. I'm pretty sure that the insight John has shared will greatly benefit anyone who is watching us. Just to wrap it up, the journey of e-commerce has been incredible. Thanks to technologies, our shopping has become more convenient and faster. In the past, e-commerce sites were quite basic. Fast forward to today, we are talking about next-level advancement, like leveraging GenAI capabilities through Amazon Bedrock, and offerings like Buy with Prime, enhancing your shopping experience. Our main focus of today's session was to highlight the power of Buy with Prime APIs for custom integration. With Bedrock, Amazon Bedrock's serverless approach, you can rapidly deploy and adapt GenAI capabilities into your apps without the hassle of managing technical infrastructure. With that being said, the future of e-commerce looks promising, with a lot of advancement that we have only imagined. Thank you for joining us in this journey. As promised, we have a QR code for you. If you want to sign up for Buy with Prime interest list, we'll reach out to you. There is a Buy with Prime QR code for you. And the another QR code is from Agents for Amazon Bedrock, which will take you to homepage of the service. Feel free to take pictures. Thank you. And here's a list of Buy with Prime sessions that might catch your interest. I guess our session is Buy with Prime 303, second last. We have one more session coming up if you want to see in person. Nevertheless, you can watch all session recording online post-reInvent. And we would appreciate if you leave your survey through your app. I hope you have a fun, learning-packed time in this session.